Thank you very much. What a hard act to follow. But it's lovely to be amongst friends and to be in a safe space. I think I could start my conversation just where Christine left off. Can you imagine how the IMF would be if we didn't have a woman in the helm? Just to use her as a case study about women's leadership. Because we have had a woman for a couple of years there, something as mundane as childcare, which stops the majority of women from entering the labor market and becoming productive citizens, is now in the center of the work of the IMF. You know, this thing called a baby happens everywhere. And the fact that only recently are we thinking about far-reaching policies in order to make sure that when families have babies, mothers and fathers are able to work as a team so that it is not a penalty for the mother and a reward for the father who may get additional income at work because he can claim for an additional baby. But the mother gets a penalty because when she takes time to take care of the baby, she may lose an opportunity to be promoted. She may lose out on different benefits at work. So here are two cute people who make a cute baby. And for other one, there is a drawback. And for the other one, it is an advantage. This is a big issue because this actually determines the future of generations and generations of women. And it has never featured in the macroeconomic decision-making of countries. Guess what now? Christine asks these questions to nations. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about women's leadership, because the lived experience of women becomes an issue in the boardroom, and it begins to change the world one woman at a time. I'll tell you also another issue that she has been able to take forward, and we're proud as UN Women to have been associated with that work: gender responsive budgeting. As UN Women, we don't have an easy in with ministers of finance. So we play bad cop, good cop. We discuss the issues that are important for all of us. She takes them to the ministers of finance, and she's able to engage with them with far greater authority than we can, in order to make sure that the Minister of Finance understands that sanitation in schools is important, because otherwise we lose girls. Girls end up dropping out of school because when they have problems with their hygiene, with their menstrual needs, 1 month after the other, before long, the girl just never goes back to school. And we begin to lose the future human resource of nations. Only a woman and some men, there's some real cool men, by the way, speak about these things. We have Gabriela here. She's Mexican. She is in the leadership of the OECD. There was a time when the OECD was a masculine organization. I never associated it with gender equality, I have to tell you, Gabriela. When I was deputy president in South Africa, working with the OECD, I just always thought these people just about numbers and numbers and numbers, which sometimes I felt were just far from the issues I was dealing with every day in my constituency. Enter Gabriela. The conversation has changed. They are part of the coalition for equal pay. They have been able to work with us and many other countries in order for us to facilitate the buy-in of member states, of private sector, to address the issue of equal pay, which Christine talked about. Can you imagine if we increase the number of women insignificant institutions. How many of these kinds of ideas would be entrenched in institutions and therefore facilitate transformation? That is why women's leadership everywhere is so critical. And these examples I've just given you, does any one of these threaten men in any way? If at a workplace we manage to make sure that we make both parents responsible and we make sure that responsible for their children as fully as possible, that the benefits of being an employee as a mother or a father do not diminish because you have a child, no one is being shortchanged. We are making it possible for men to be present parent, but we also make it possible for women to enhance the economic development, growth, etc. of countries. So we are now at a stage where when we talk about women's leadership and the struggles that we have to make it sustainable, we are looking for interventions that will make the changes sustainable. If I just stray into politics, as we speak right now, 75% of legislators, Congress, and members of parliament are men. A whooping 75% of the people who make laws in the world are men. This is something that has to change. I think for us to continuously celebrate the 30% mark creates the normalization of underperformance and underrepresentation of women. Hard as parity is, we need to constantly call for it, because not unless we say it, it just will not seem like this is an ambition we have. And now we are getting to be 25 years after the adoption of the Beijing Platform for Action. 25 years later, we have 75% of men making decisions about all the laws that happen in all of the countries. Every election, you hold your breath and you say, what's going to happen in country A? Will we get more women? In a country like Nigeria, we have more than 5% of women making decisions as politicians. How does that happen? This country that has got amazing, fantastic women. This is where me and Christine now believe in this thing called quotas or special measures. Because every election, we have to have reasonable expectation that we will maintain a minimum number of men and women in the decision making so that we are able to be in a world where there isn't a parliament, an institution that makes decision where it is something about us without us. So what I'm throwing out to you there as leaders in your own right, help us to build this narrative for special measures over a period of time until we're able to have relative and meaningful equality and participation of women and men in decision-making in decision-making bodies. We also have another challenge that as we anticipate the change in the economy, the use of technology, the people who are influencing that future exclude women. I sometimes look at robots and some of the robotics and the functions we expect robots to perform, and I see that there's even male robots and men robots. And I'm like, why must a robot have a gender? That on its own just perpetuates certain gender stereotypes, because the guy robot does a guy thing, something we're trying to change now, and a girl robot does the girl thing. And yet we're trying to find solutions for all of society, and we're trying to enhance equality. If there's more women who are designing, who are behind the laboratories where the thinking is helping place, I bet you'll be looking at a way of using the robotics is another site of struggle for gender equality. So I am asking, Dean, that the university, as we teach these young people, we make sure that they understand that that too is a site of struggle where their leadership is needed. Let me end by saying, so that maybe we have a few minutes for questions, if they are. Let me end by saying that, and I was saying to Gabriela, I struggle to finish the story without saying something about being a grandmother. I share that with you, Christine. If I knew grandchildren were so wonderful, I would have had them first. Uh, we want to be, because each one of us here is a leader. Our responsibility sitting in this room is to lift as we climb. Because each one of us can mentor somebody, can create a path for some young person in our lives, in our vicinity, in our workplace. What we want to create is a world where, in terms of the many ills that we're dealing with today, in the next decade or so, children should be able to say, is it true, grandma, that you were forced, some girls were forced to marry an old grandpa, and that they didn't have a choice? And, and I would say, yes, my baby, it was true. And my grandchild should be able to say, I cannot even begin to think that as something that is possible, because we have been fought, we would have fought so much that child marriage is a thing of the past, that my grandchildren don't even think it's possible for something like that to happen. There are battles of our generation that we must fight and we must win, because every generation is given a cause to fight or to betray. We should not betray the cause that we must win in our generation. This is our responsibility, because each one of us who are here, we are a leader in our own rights. Thank you.